San Diego County is known for being one of America's most expensive regions. Locals are feeling the squeeze and looking for solutions. KPBS's new series, Price of San Diego, delves into the rising cost of groceries, childcare, car insurance, and even our beloved California burrito. You won't want to miss this ongoing series live now at kpbs.org/Price of San Diego.
Welcome in, San Diego. It's Jade Hindman. On today's show, Congressman Issa will not run for re-election. We'll tell you why and who wants to fill the seat for the 48th District. This is KPBS Midday Edition, connecting our communities through conversation. So longtime Congressman Issa announced he will not run for re-election in 2026 and will be retiring at the end of the year. Issa has been part of Southern California politics for decades. In a statement, Issa said, quote, "It's the right time for a new chapter and new challenges," unquote. Also on Friday, San Diego County Supervisor Jim Desmond announced his candidacy for the newly redrawn 48th District seat. And here to talk more about the news is Scott Lewis, CEO and Editor-in-Chief at Voice of San Diego. Scott, welcome back to Midday.
Thank you, Jade. Nice to be here.
Always glad to have you. So this news it came late Friday, actually. What do you know about Issa's decision to retire?
Well, it had been brewing for a few weeks, if not longer. You know, a lot of people assumed he might be doing this. He insisted over and over again that he wouldn't. He even openly flirted with and talked about how good he'd be as a candidate in Texas at a safe sort of conservative seat out there, and then came back and said, no, I'm going to stay home. I'm going to run for re-election, and I'm going to win. Even last week, he said, I'm going to win. I'm going to run for re-election, and I've got no problem winning. And then some things started happening last week. One of the candidates for state senate moved over to a congressional seat where Jim Desmond, the county supervisor, a Republican, was running against Mike Levin, and that indicated that Desmond had other plans. And sure enough, Desmond filed to run for the seat that Issa had, and no way he would try to primary Issa. And so it became clear that Issa was considering something else. And sure enough, by the end of the day, Issa on Friday had endorsed Jim Desmond. And just today, another sort of wild card out there, Carl DeMaio, an assemblyman, a lot of people were wondering if he would want to run. He endorsed County Supervisor Jim Desmond today, too. So the Republicans have united behind Jim Desmond to try to keep this seat that became a lot more Democratic.
Now, Issa's district was reshaped after Proposition 50's passage last year in a move designed really to give Democrats more congressional seats in 2026. How did Issa's district, California's 48th, actually change as a result of that?
Yeah, it was one of the, 4 or 5 that the governor and the legislature and then the voters approved, really targeting to turn them in from solid or close to solid Republican districts to ones that Democrats could win. It went from a district that voted about 14 points in favor of Trump to one that Kamala Harris won by about 2.5% points. So, very dramatic change. It's a gigantic district that reaches almost to the border in the desert in the south, all the way up through to Palm Desert and Coachella Valley, and that whole area. So it's really population centers are concentrated in Escondido, San Marcos, Vista, but Temecula is involved, and so it's a very geographically diverse and gigantic, like I said, district. And it's kind of the Democrats to lose at this point, in a sense that, they have an edge, and you would think in a midterm election, the Democrats will do well or do better. But you never know with the politics and the world the way it is right now, how things could change.
Yeah. Well, back to Jim Desmond, or County Supervisor Jim Desmond, I should say. Of course, he announced his own campaign for the seat. What stands out to you about that news?
Yeah, he's termed out as county supervisor. He's methodically gone up the ladder. He was a mayor of San Marcos. Then he was county supervisor. He took a very sort of you know, a conservative approach during the COVID pandemic and really, brought in a lot of people who were skeptical of the closures of the vaccine and other things. He's really worked to be the conservative voice opposing fees and taxes that the county wants to do. He has supported the labor groups there, though, and he's really tried to be the voice that would kind of mimic what Donald Trump has been for the federal government at the county, and he had no opportunity for reelection that he's termed out at the county. So he wanted to run. He was running against Mike Levin in the 49th district, but then with the redraw, it now includes the 48th now includes the city he used to be mayor of, San Marcos. So it's a natural switch over for him.
Yeah. Just curious, I mean, how does Desmond replacing Issa in this race change the dynamics of the race?
I think he's a stronger candidate in a way than Issa. I think Issa might not like that comment, but I think that he is. He's not as tied to Trump. There will be a lot of antipathy towards Trump in the Democrats' messaging. They'll be really excited to drive and to try to capitalize on some of the frustration with Trump, especially with the more Democratic district. And I think he's definitely less tied. I don't know how much sort of direct connection they'll have to Trump. Obviously, they'll find some and find a way to tie him to that administration. But I think he's a strong candidate. He's known in the district. Like I said, he was mayor of one of the cities. Issa was a little, more of had a little bit more of the carpetbagger sort of feel to him as he switched districts himself a couple cycles ago. And so I think he's a stronger candidate. And with the Republicans united behind him, national Republicans will see this likely as a must win and pour as much resources as they can into it, unless it's just obvious from the start that he has no shot.
Can you remind us who is running on the Democratic side of this race? And where does that
Yeah, there are a few
stand?
candidates. There's kind of three main ones. Marnie Von Wilpert's a city council member at the San Diego City Council. She's been racking up a few endorsements. They're both fighting, or there's others fighting for labor endorsements. She just got, a few good ones. She's a strong candidate. Amar Campa-Najjar, this will be his third time running for Congress, and he's got his own share of endorsements. A lot of members of Congress, including his influential girlfriend, Representative Sarah Jacobs, has been supportive. Obviously, there was a story out about how she's doing all she can to make sure her colleagues don't feel pressured to endorse him, but they still are in waves. And he's got a lot of social media prowess and such. He's doing well, getting a lot of endorsements too. And then there's a businessman from Palm Springs, Brandon Riker. He actually 10 years ago ran for lieutenant governor in Vermont, and he ended up abandoning that race. But he has a lot of money, and he was part of his family's investment firm for a long time. So kind of an entrepreneur out of the Palm Springs area, and very tied to wanting to make sure that Coachella Valley and that area is represented well. So those are the sort of three there. Mike Schaefer, a member of the Board of Equalization. He's a former city council member, been in public service for a long, long time, and he's in there as well. But those top three are kind of the main ones.
Now, I know, you've been following the local Republican Party for a minute and some of the changes that have been happening within it as well. Now, one name we often see in those stories is State Assembly member Carl DeMaio. So what's the relationship between Issa and DeMaio, and how does that play into Friday's news?
They very openly despise each other, Issa and DeMaio. They've had battles at the party level in a way that like Issa's been directly and personally involved in for a while. I think it's fair to say DeMaio won, and he now, is the most by far influential member of the local Republican Party. and the allies of Issa have fallen. But they, like I said, they united to support Desmond for this seat, which was an interesting one. DeMaio and Issa ran against each other a few years ago, and it was gross. It was one of the ugliest elections I've ever seen. Issa was openly gay baiting DeMaio, and DeMaio was, linking Issa to MS-13 gangs, and it was a really ugly and bitter fight for that seat that Issa ended up winning, and I don't think they'll ever forgive each other for how that went. So that was pretty gnarly, and I think I don't know. I think a lot of people were waiting to see if DeMaio got into this, even with Desmond getting in, and the Secretary of State extended the window because the incumbent dropped out. And then DeMaio, like I said today, let it be known that he's enthusiastically supporting Desmond for that seat. So that's a big deal for Desmond and for the party uniting.
Yeah. Well, Issa has changed districts before, and even fairly recently was considering some options to maneuver around the redistricting challenges. You mentioned he talked about moving to Texas. What do we know about his future plans?
He said he wants to do something different. When he was flirting with the run in Texas, he had a conversation with President Trump in the White House. And I wish I could hear what they had said to each other and what Trump may have offered him for a sort of third stage of his career. He was an entrepreneur, made a ton of money in the car alarm business, and then he became a congressman for about the same amount of time. So he's got kind of a third stage, I guess. That's something he could do maybe in the administration, maybe an ambassadorship, something like that he's tried for before. And so we'll see what he goes for there. He was known as, big time in the oversight world. The Fast and Furious scandals and the Benghazi scandals from the Obama administration, a lot of those were something that Congressman Issa was a big part in ginning up interest in.
Yeah. Well, tell me more about his legacy, because he was in California politics for over 2 decades. If you had to describe it, how would you?
I think the biggest first thing I remember him doing was in 2002 or 3 when he led the recall campaign. He was openly wanting to run for governor, and so he triggered this recall campaign against Governor Gray Davis. And then, we all remember what actually happened, which is a very much more famous man, Arnold Schwarzenegger, ended up getting into that race. And so Issa, I think, spent a lot of his personal fortune. Well, not a lot. I mean, he's a very, very rich man, but he spent a lot of money trying to get that done and then watch somebody else take the glory from it. He ended up becoming he tried to become more of the moderate wing of like the intellectual property and technology world. But then he became a lot more partisan, especially with the oversight of the Obama administration when he was oversight head there and the Benghazi investigation and stuff like that. And then he was very quick and immediately and energetically supportive of President Trump. He wasn't one of those who had any doubts. He was there from the beginning and really identified himself with that. So that sort of hurt some of that kind of moderate tech guy center stuff that he was going for before. And spent a lot of time still on intellectual property issues and such, but the oversight and the connection to Trump is what he ended up with.
Yeah. Well, in the last 30 seconds we have, what are you expecting from the 48th district race now as we look towards the June primary and November midterm elections?
Yeah, so County Supervisor Jim Desmond will probably get through the primary, which means that we're just wondering who will go with him. So probably between those 3 main candidates, Brendan Riker, Amar Campanajjar, and Marty Van Wilpert, and we'll be really interested to see which one emerges and then how they immediately start polling. Because if it's close, both national parties will pour massive amounts of money into it, and it could be very ugly and very interesting.
I've been speaking with Scott Lewis. He's the editor-in-chief at Voice of San Diego. Scott, thank you so very much.
Yeah, thank you, Jake.
I'm Lawrence K. Jackson, host and producer of the San Diego News Now podcast. It's a daily podcast airing every morning. We cover news pertaining to all 18 cities in the county, weekend events, and even some casual conversations. You can listen to the San Diego News Now podcast wherever you get your podcasts.